If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. Stalker is a horror first-person shooter series developed by GSC Game World, a Ukrainian game developer. Currently there are 3 entries in the series, with the 4th one in development. The series is set in the Zone, or formerly the Zone of Alienation, located around the Chernobyl nuclear plant. You see, in this timeline there was a second disaster at the power plant which caused strange changes in the area around it. The people who occupied this area became to be known as Stalkers. Each of the game in the series has a vast open world with multiple locations to go through, with multiple characters to interact with. However, we're not here to talk about the first game, Shadow of Chernobyl, but rather we will be looking at how the project started and how it became the game we know it as it is today. Oblivion Lost was the project that became Stalker, specifically Stalker Shadow of Chernobyl. The project started its development in 2001 and it was vastly different from what the retail game looks like. The main drastic change was that it was supposed to be a futuristic team-based shooter, and where it was set, it would have varying locations like high-tech facilities and Aztec temples. Not much is known as to what the story was, but all I can deduce is that it would have been your run-of-the-mill sci-fi shooter with robots and aliens. This might be a little complicated, so let me try to explain what the builds are. So, Shadow of Chernobyl had 3 eras of development: the Oblivion Lost era, or we can call it the Alpha, the Stalker Oblivion Lost era, or the Beta, and the Stalker Shadow of Chernobyl era, the Retail. All 3 of these eras have their own playable builds. There are dozens for both the Beta and the Retail era, but the original Oblivion Lost has a couple of them. In this video, we'll be going through each of the original alpha builds of Oblivion Lost. Full disclaimer, the footage you'll be seeing on screen is taken from a channel called Robert Quinlan. That's because I was not able to run these builds on my own PC, and I'm not technical enough to figure out what's the problem. I'll share the link to the Russian wiki website that has all the download links for these builds, so you can try it on your own. Build 749, one of the earliest builds of Oblivion Lost, dated April 19th, 2001. At this point, they were testing the capabilities of the X-ray engine, the same engine that would power Shadow of Chernobyl. In this build, there's only one level, a Mayan temple, and only one weapon to use, the railgun from Quake 3 Arena. However, within the build, there's files that indicate the presence of a machine gun, a rocket launcher, armor, first aid kits, and ammunition for the weapons. Then there's 3 types of enemies: the alien, the jumper, and the mover. But you have to enable them in the build by messing around with the code. Build 756. This build's primary goal was to test the implementation of helicopter controls. It is dated June 26th, 2001. There are 3 levels in this build: Heli_Test, Heli, and Test. Heli_Test consists of a helipad and a desert area around it. It just has the player and the helicopter in it. Heli is almost the same but has the helicopter mid-air when the map is loaded. Test is completely different from the other 2. It consists of metal structures and platforms. In this build, the player character had a 3D model. It was taken from GSC Game World's earlier title, Venom codename Outbreak. Lastly, the player was equipped with a sniper-type weapon, but it wouldn't fire. Build 788. This build was used as a tech demo where a camera was pre-programmed to follow a specific path to show all the locations in the map. But if you mess around with the code, you can disable the camera and move around freely. It is dated August 27th, 2001. Something to note here is the stark difference between the Mayan temple and the futuristic locations shown here, and what the end product became. Such a drastic change. Of course, the Mayan temples and the futuristic facilities were going to be in Oblivion Lost. Other new additions in this build include a minigun, new animations for the third-person model, and improvements to the graphical abilities of the engine. For example, using environment maps for reflections. Build 1098. This build is the last known one for the Alpha or Oblivion Lost stages of development. After this, drastic changes were done on the game and the setting was changed from the futuristic one to a more contemporary one within the Chernobyl area. In this build, there is a valley with the ruins of an Aztec temple, a lush forest surrounding it, underground areas, tunnels, and much more. There is also a fully functional UI present, along with two new characters, Jeffrey and Barbie. Jeffrey was later reused as a placeholder for future builds of the game, while Barbie only showed up in this build. The thing is, Sergei Grigorovich, the CEO and founder of GSE Game World, was not happy with the direction this game was going, and he wanted to change the setting to something more sinister. And there you have it. That was Oblivion Lost, or at least a summary of what it was supposed to look like. It is strange thinking that this was Stalker Shadow of Chernobyl. Of course, like I mentioned, after Oblivion Lost was kind of scrapped, the GSC Game World team started working on Stalker Oblivion Lost. So if Oblivion Lost was the alpha, Stalker Oblivion Lost was the beta for Shadow of Chernobyl. There's much to talk about this series, and I hope you enjoyed my first video about it. Let me know in the comments what Stalker topics would you like me to cover, and finally, thank you for watching.